Father facing son in court and accusing him. It's all coming up right now on Open Court. Speaking of drama, I know somebody who's really good with the drama. It's J. Buzz von Ornsteiner, who joins me now live in studio today. He's my guest. He's a forensic psychologist, probably the best suited of many to try to sort through this extraordinarily bizarre dynamic. J. Buzz, I couldn't believe it when I watched Bruce Fast walking into that courtroom yesterday. Thomas Fast would not look up. Bruce Fast would not look at him. All through the testimony, Thomas kept fidgeting. I think he stole a glance or two, but lightning fast at his father on the stand.
Very restless.
Oh, God, it was so uncomfortable.
Very conflicted for the father. Here you loved your son, now you hate your son, your wife is dead, your son is on trial for your wife's murder, and you're very conflicted. And again, I think all of us have some kind of confliction when we talk about our parents to begin with. We have memories of love. We also can have those memories of hatred. But here you have a son who had 30 years of mental health issues and truly has paranoid delusions.
But we're not just saying that because of this weirdness that he's in. This has been diagnosed.
Absolutely, and everyone's in agreement. And paranoid delusions, the person can function, the person can be competent, but when it comes to these delusions, and with this individual, he believes the CIA is after him and that there's the Russian mafia.
Or the GRU, or whether he's thinking it's the utility company or the Russian mafia, we're not sure, right?
All these conspiracies, but aside from those delusions,
you see our cameraman thinks that's hilarious. He's laughing.
Well, you either laugh or you cry here. It's an emotional release. But here he is competent to stand trial. Here he leads a life full of employment. He has some kind of relationship with his father and his stepmother. He saw them certainly for the holidays, but he functions. He just doesn't function well. But the father, what I found was very telling, on the witness stand says, when he would start to talk about these delusions, I would say, I don't want to hear this. Take your meds. That sounds like a father that cares. That sounds like a father that was concerned. That sounds like a father who knew he didn't want to hear these conspiracies anymore.
I'm thinking the opposite. That's like, I don't want to hear this. That's a father who's like, take your troubles outside my house.
Well, I look at it as, if you entertain the thoughts, if you entertain the conspiracies, if you entertain those delusions, it never ends because the person truly believes these. We have to remember a person with delusional disorders.
You don't have to coddle them.
Redirection. Take your medication.
Jurors see everything, and if they perceive for a moment that some big, smart defense attorney is beating her up and she's mourning the loss of her dismembered friend, you have got to be so careful if you're a defense attorney in terms of cross-examination of people who, nobody's suggesting for a minute she's involved in any conspiracy here. These jurors don't know for a minute if that's a theory. They just see somebody who's mourning the loss of her friend.
Absolutely.
But as a defense attorney, you've got to do what you've got to do. Did he do it without that sort of like, I don't know, at one point we thought he was being
a little sarcastic. And he's going very slow, and you want to be smooth, and these people are in emotional pain, and they are in grief. It doesn't matter if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they're reliving that emotional pain. The defense attorney has to go very slow. He still has to seem like a nice guy, kind of, but he needs to advocate for his client. So it's a delicate balance. It's a delicate song and dance movement, but occasionally his voice gets a little edgy.
This is like professional tough love?
Yeah, kind of. It sounds like he's a little sarcastic sometimes because he's slowly moving in, and it's not browbeating, but he's kind of punching little holes here and there to make the jury members say, hey, maybe there's something going on there. Maybe it's not the defendant who did it. Maybe his own father did it, and he's setting him up because he is mentally ill. He's an easy target. He's an easy scapegoat.
What I find interesting about this is that there's a phone call that's made from Dad, from Bruce Fast, to this witness, Debbie. It's made at somewhere around 7:30 in the evening, which is pretty early on in all of this. Look, I could go AWOL from my house for 7 or 8 hours before anybody would call and worry about me, and I got two little kids. So I am a little curious as to why, a couple that has no children to look after, she's flown home on her own. I am a little curious as to why a father might be so, let's not call him a father, a husband, would be so worried about where his wife is so early in the game.
I see where you're going. First of all, he was a very loving, doting husband. He does profess this great love for each other. He does have a mentally ill son who he states had been making threats to him and his wife. He does have a mentally ill son, whether he's mentally ill or not, who was suspicious that he wasn't going to get his inheritance. He did view his stepmother as his oppressor. He felt the stepmother was plotting with his father to keep him from getting his money.
But Buzz, she goes missing for a couple hours and you're already thinking, oh my God, my mentally ill son must have done something horrible, honestly?
Well, we're wondering what those threats were before. Now, they did employ him. I mean, they had a relationship with their son. He did see them on the holidays, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. They did employ him in his construction company.
But he wasn't allowed in the house, apparently, very often. I don't know if it was not allowed, but he wasn't a part of their household normalcy.
Absolutely.
It was just on the occasions he was allowed to be a part of their life.
It doesn't sound like it was a particularly loving family. It sounds like it was restrained, but they did get along. The son also had a bid on those jobs. The father wasn't just giving him handouts.
Sure, he had a bid.
He had a bid. He had to, and the son, let's not forget, delusional disorder or delusions. It was a certain thing, the CIA, the FBI, that was the delusion. The rest of his life, he seemed to be acting in a competent manner.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
When you do those night court things that you do, and you're faced with all these, I mean, really unique individuals, right? Do you ever think that some of their crazy stories might actually be true?
I want to believe them. I want to believe them. Trust me, when someone says they're actually the illegitimate child of a famous person, or when someone tells me they're having an affair with Tom Cruise or John Travolta and have these relationships with these famous people, I want to believe them. Trust me, you know, life is pretty dull. But over time, it just doesn't make any sense. Delusions, non-bizarre delusions, they could be true, but they're not true.
Because, you know, like 8 years ago, if one of those people at night court who are a little troubled upstairs had said to you, I swear President Bush is listening in on my phone calls and reading my email.
Right.
You wouldn't have believed it then.
No, you're right.
And now you might.
No, you're right.
Given what the news is giving us.
And I would want to examine the rest of his life, or her life. I would want to know that she's working. I would want to know that she's leading a productive lifestyle, that there wasn't drugs or alcohol involved. And if she did have a history of mental illness, I would want to know about her medication.
Do you love the fact that I was able to get NSA wiretapping into this program?
Yes.
And it's about a murder case?
You know, and believe me, I'm paranoid sometimes. Sometimes when I'm sleep deprived, I become more paranoid. And oftentimes when people drink or have excessive drug use, they have the signs of paranoia.
Sure, of course.
So it is brain disorder, it's brain chemistry.
So Buzz, when you have statements of defendants, do you think people are savvy enough these days to realize that sometimes people say things that they don't mean, that aren't true, and even confessions are completely bogus these days and have been proven by science to be?
Yeah, I would hope so. You know, when we look at someone with mental health issues, when we look at someone that has cognitive impairments, when we look at how police interrogate, we want to believe that people are more informed than previously, that they know that people can make mistakes, that people can say things because they think that's what the police want to hear, that they're pressured by authority, or they just are more vulnerable than other people because they have a lack of sleep and a lack of eating, and they're scared and they just want to get out and do what the people want from them. So I like to think that, you know, how the jury selected and how people look at the mentally ill, I hope was taken into consideration. How people look at family dynamics, I hope was taken into consideration.
Or children, for that matter. But huge thanks to J. Buzz von Ornsteiner, who joined me on set today to talk through all of these issues. Nice to have you, and we'll see you back here next week.